The echo of silence. The universe held its breath around the exploration vessel Prometheus as it drifted toward the derelict station. Captain Ilara Rais stood at the viewport, her reflection ghosting against the backdrop of stars and the massive construct that loomed before them. "How long has it been out here?" she asked, not turning from the view. Dr. Kento Ishida consulted his datapad. Based on radiation decay patterns and stellar drift calculations, approximately 20,000 years. 20,000 years. The number hung in the air between them. The station predated the Arcadian Confederation, predated first contact between their species, predated even the earliest known interstellar civilizations in their records. And no one's ever found it before. Lieutenant Commander Vezek asked, his four eyes narrowing in the way his species did when suspicious. "It's been hiding in plain sight," Dr. Ishida explained. "The station's position in this nebula shields it from most long-range scans. We only detected it because we were specifically looking for anomalies in gravity signatures." Captain Rice turned from the viewport, surveying her diverse crew. 6 species represented the Arcadian Confederation on this mission of exploration and discovery. None of them had expected to find something like this. "Prepare the boarding team," she ordered. "Full containment protocols. We don't know what's been preserved in there." The docking procedure took 3 hours. The station's automated systems still functioned at some basic level, recognizing their approach and extending a docking collar that matched none of their standard configurations. Engineering had to create an adapter on the spot. When the airlock finally cycled open, Rise led the team inside. The air was stale but breathable, maintained by ancient systems still faithfully performing their duties millennia after their creators had vanished. "Look at this architecture," Dr. Ishida whispered, his voice filled with reverent awe. "I've never seen anything like it." The corridors were constructed with flowing lines that somehow felt both organic and mathematical. The proportions seemed familiar yet subtly wrong, as if designed for beings similar to but not quite the same as any of them. "These markings," Lieutenant Nix said, running her slender fingers along symbols etched into a wall panel. "They're unlike any language in the Confederation database." Dr. Ishida approached, scanning the symbols with his device. "Wait, there's something familiar about the pattern structure. It's almost like..." His voice trailed off as he worked, the rest of the team continuing their exploration of the entrance chamber. Captain Rice found herself drawn to what appeared to be a control console. When she placed her hand on its surface, the station awoke. Lights flared to life throughout the chamber. A holographic display erupted from the console, filling the air with 3-dimensional symbols that swirled and rearranged themselves before coalescing into a form that stunned them all into silence. A bipedal figure stood before them, its appearance unnervingly familiar yet alien. "It can't be," Lieutenant Commander Vezak whispered. But it was. The figure was unmistakably human. Humans were a myth, a legend, stories told to children about the species that had supposedly seeded the stars with life before vanishing from the galaxy. No concrete evidence of their existence had ever been found. Until now. The holographic human spoke, its voice resonating through the chamber in a language none of them understood. Dr. Ishida frantically adjusted his translation matrix. "Final record of humanity," the figure was saying when the translation finally engaged. "If you have found this station, then our warnings were heeded. The galaxy has forgotten us, as we intended." Captain Rice stepped forward. "Can it hear us? Is this interactive?" "I don't think so," Dr. Ishida replied. "This appears to be a recorded message, triggering when the station is accessed." The holographic human continued. "This archive contains the complete history of our species, from our first steps on Earth to our last message to the stars. It details our triumphs and our failures, our wisdom and our terrible mistakes. Most importantly, it contains the truth about the war that ends wars, and why we chose silence over survival." The team exchanged uneasy glances. "Our journey among the stars began with hope and courage," the human continued. "We spread throughout our solar system, then to nearby stars, encountering wonders beyond our ancestors' wildest dreams. When we discovered we were not alone in the universe, it was the greatest moment in our history. The hologram shifted, showing scenes of first contact between humans and various alien species. Many were unrecognizable, but some bore ancestral resemblances to members of the Confederation. For a time, we flourished together, a golden age of cooperation and advancement. But as is often the way with sentient life, differences became divisions. Divisions became conflicts. Conflicts became war. The images changed to scenes of devastation. Planets scared by weapons of unimaginable power. Fleets of ships engaged in battle among the stars. Entire solar systems reduced to debris fields. The fracture, as we came to call it, began with a misunderstanding between two minor powers. It should have been nothing. A diplomatic incident, quickly resolved and forgotten. Instead, alliances were invoked. Lines were drawn. Within a decade, every spacefaring civilization had chosen sides. Captain Rice watched in horror as the holographic display showed the escalation. First conventional warfare, then planet killers, and finally weapons that targeted the fabric of spacetime itself. By the time we recognized our madness, it was almost too late. 300 years of war had reduced mighty civilizations to ruins. Countless species faced extinction. The galaxy itself was wounded by our weapons. Dr. Ishida worked frantically at his datavat. Captain, I'm cross-referencing this with our astronomical records. The shattered expanse, the hollow stars, the crimson nebula. They're all consistent with the aftermath of the weapons being described here. The hologram continued. In our darkest hour, humanity made a choice. We had been among the most warlike of species and among the most ingenious developers of weapons. The war had been fought with tools of our design, strategies from our history. We bore a special responsibility for what had happened. The human's expression changed, showing a deep, sorrowful resolve. This archive contains our complete technological knowledge, but it is sealed with a warning. Much of what we discovered should not be rediscovered. The weapon systems described herein must never be rebuilt. The cycle must not begin again. Lieutenant Nix looked up from her scanning device. Captain, there are data cores throughout this station. The amount of information stored here is incalculable. Our final act as a species was to ensure peace for those who would come after us. The hologram said, "You will find no humans among the stars. We have withdrawn from the galaxy, taking our knowledge and our weapons with us. Those few alien species who survived have been given a chance to begin again, their memories of us, and the war carefully obscured by methods detailed in this archive." Captain Rice felt a chill run through her. They engineered their own extinction from galactic memory. This repository will remain hidden until the galaxy is ready for the truth, the hologram concluded. If you have found it, perhaps that time has come. Learn from our history. Remember our final message to all sentient life. The hologram raised its hand, and words appeared in the air, in every written language of the Confederation, and dozens more they didn't recognize. The cost of war is too high. The message hung in the air for a long moment before the hologram faded, leaving them in silence. The station hummed around them, waiting. Captain, Dr. Ishida said quietly, I've managed to access the station's navigational records. There are coordinates here, pointing to what appears to be the human homeworld. Earth, Rise whispered the mythical name. Yes, Ishida confirmed. And there's something else. The final record of humanity's decision. It's encrypted, but I think I can break it. Captain Rise looked around at her team, seeing the weight of discovery in their eyes. They had found more than an ancient artifact. They had uncovered the missing cornerstone of galactic history. Do it, she ordered. Let's hear humanity's final message. The weight of memory. The data core pulsed with soft blue light as Dr. Ishida connected it to their systems. The rest of the Prometheus crew had gathered in the station's central chamber, a vast spherical space dominated by a holographic projection of the galaxy, not as it was now, but as it had been 20,000 years ago. The encryption is unlike anything in our records, Dr. Ishida explained, but it follows logical patterns. I believe it was designed to be decipherable by any advanced civilization. Captain Rice nodded. They wanted to be sure their message would be understood whenever it was found. Exactly, Ishida agreed. And there, I've got it. The holographic galaxy disappeared, replaced by the image of a chamber filled with somber humans. They sat around a circular table, their faces etched with exhaustion and grim determination. One woman stood, her uniform marking her as a leader among them. "This is the final session of the Human Emergency Council," she announced, her voice clear despite its weariness. "The date is October 17, 2789, 5 years since the fracture began, and 300 years since humans first ventured beyond our solar system." The woman paused, looking around at her colleagues. "The decision before us has been debated for 6 months. All alternatives have been considered and found insufficient. The war continues to escalate. The Centauri Combined deployed temporal disruption weapons in the Orion sector last week. The Rigelian hegemony responded with dimensional fracture bombs. 3 entire star systems have been removed from space-time." Murmurs of horror rippled through the Prometheus crew as they watched. "Our intelligence indicates that 17 species have already gone extinct," the human leader continued. "Another 33 face critical population collapse. If this continues, the galaxy will be sterilized within 50 years. A man at the table spoke up. "Admiral Jung, for the record, I still believe the Perseus Protocol could work without resorting to the final option." "Your objection is noted, Director Mbeki," Admiral Jung replied. "But our simulations give the Perseus Protocol only a 17% chance of success. The final option is the only path with a probability above 90%. "At what cost?" another council member asked, her voice breaking. "At the cost of humanity," Admiral Jung said simply. "Every human, everywhere in the galaxy." The Prometheus crew watched in stunned silence as the Human Council voted. The decision was not unanimous, but the majority was clear. "Then it is decided," Admiral Jung announced. "The final option will be implemented in stages. Stage 1. All human knowledge will be preserved in hidden repositories like this one, scattered throughout the galaxy but accessible only to civilizations that have evolved beyond warfare. Stage 2. The mnemonic cascade will be deployed to remove all memory of humans, our weapons, and the specific technologies that enabled this war from the surviving alien species. They will remember only that there was a conflict, not who started it or how it was fought. Stage 3. All humans will return to Earth or designated sanctuary worlds. The veil will be activated, isolating these worlds from the rest of the galaxy and preventing any escape. Stage 4. The Silence Protocol will be enacted. Humanity will live out its remaining days in peace, confined to its cradle, never again to venture among the stars. The recording showed the implementation of each stage, the construction of the repositories, the deployment of the memory-altering technology, the mass exodus of humans from colonies across the galaxy, and finally, the activation of something called the Veil, a shimmering barrier that enveloped Earth and a handful of other worlds. The Veil is not merely a shield, Admiral Jung explained in a later recording. It is a one-way dimensional barrier. Nothing can leave. No signal, no matter, nothing. Earth and the sanctuary worlds will exist slightly out of phase with the rest of the universe, visible but unreachable. Dr. Ishida's voice was hushed with awe. They imprisoned themselves, an entire species, choosing extinction from the galactic community rather than allowing the war to continue. The final recording showed Admiral Jung, much older now, standing on what appeared to be Earth, looking up at a sky that shimmered with the faint distortion of the veil. "This is the last message that will ever leave Earth," she said. "The repositories are complete. The mnemonic cascade has taken effect. The surviving species are beginning to rebuild, free from the memory of our weapons and our wars. She looked directly at the camera, as if seeing across the millennia to the crew who would eventually find her message. We were not monsters. We were explorers and dreamers, artists and builders. But we were also warriors, and we brought the mathematics of death to the stars. When we recognized what we had unleashed, we had only one choice left: to remove ourselves from the equation. Her eyes filled with tears that she did not try to hide. To whoever finds this message, this is humanity's final gift and final warning. We choose to fade from history so that others might live. We choose to become legend rather than exterminators. Remember only this about us: we learned, too late, that the cost of war is too high. The recording ended. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of the ancient station. Captain Rice was the first to speak. "Dr. Ishida, are there coordinates for Earth in the database?" "Yes, Captain," he replied. "Very precise ones, accounting for 20,000 years of stellar drift." "And these other repositories, are their locations included?" "Yes, scattered throughout the galaxy. Some may have been found already, but I doubt their contents were fully understood without the context this station provides." Lieutenant Commander Vazek moved closer to the holographic display, which had returned to showing the galaxy as it once was. "If this is true, then every species in the Confederation is descended from the survivors of this war. Our earliest histories all speak of a time of rebuilding after a great calamity." "The mnemonic cascade," Dr. Ishida nodded. "It didn't erase all memory, just specific details about humans and their technology." Captain Rice walked slowly around the chamber, considering the weight of their discovery. "The question now is what we do with this knowledge." Lieutenant Nix looked troubled. "The Confederation is not at peace, Captain. The border conflicts with the Exaran Dominion grow more intense each year. If they learned about the weapons described in these archives, which is exactly why humanity locked this knowledge away." Rice finished for her. "They understood that some knowledge is too dangerous to be rediscovered. But we can't just leave this here," Dr. Ishida argued. "This is the most significant archaeological find in history. The cultural and scientific knowledge alone could restart the cycle." Vazek interrupted. "I've reviewed some of the files. The weapons they describe, they're beyond anything we've conceived. Weapons that could unmake reality itself." Captain Rice made her decision. "We will report finding an ancient station. We will share the story of humanity's sacrifice. Their final message deserves to be heard." She turned to face her crew. "But the technical specifications, the weapons research, the mathematics of destruction, those remain locked away as humanity intended." "What about Earth?" Lieutenant Nix asked. "Should we try to find it, to see if the veil still stands?" Rice considered this for a long moment. "Yes," she finally said. "We should bear witness to their choice. If nothing else, we owe them that much." 3 weeks later, the Prometheus arrived at the coordinates where Earth should be. What they found was a star much like any other, with planets orbiting in predictable patterns. But where the third planet should have been, there was instead a shimmering distortion, visible only when viewed from certain angles, a phantom world, forever separated from the rest of the universe. Captain Rice stood at the viewport, watching as the ship completed its scan of the veil. After 20,000 years, it remained intact, a testament to humanity's technological achievement and final sacrifice. "Send the message," she ordered. The communication array of the Prometheus oriented toward the phantom Earth and transmitted a simple message in every format their systems could generate. "We found your message. We understand. The galaxy remembers." There was no response, nor had they expected one. The veil would prevent any communication from passing through. But Ray's hoped that somehow, somewhere, the descendants of humanity would know that their sacrifice had not been in vain. As the Prometheus prepared to depart, Rice asked for one final scan of the phantom Earth. The results confirmed what she had suspected: signs of life, of civilization, of a species that had continued despite its self-imposed exile from the stars. "They're still there," she whispered. "After all this time. What will you include in your report to the Confederation Council?" Dr. Ishida asked as they left Earth's system behind. Captain Rice looked at the data crystal containing their findings. The truth. That long ago, a species called humanity brought war to the stars, and then, recognizing their mistake, sacrificed their place in the galaxy to ensure peace for those who would come after. And their warning. That most of all, Rice said firmly, every world, every species in the Confederation will hear humanity's final message. The cost of war is too high. As the Prometheus jumped to faster than light speed, Captain Rice thought about the phantom world they had left behind. A world of people who had chosen to become ghosts in the galaxy's memory rather than be remembered as its destroyers. In the silence of her quarters, she wondered if, someday, the veil might be lifted, if humanity might be welcomed back to a galaxy that had finally learned the lesson their sacrifice had taught. Perhaps then, the silence would end.